Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another recommendations video. This one is going to be, it's mostly all BDSM. I realized when I was putting it together that there is one or two that don't technically have BDSM elements in, but aftercare is generally seen as, well, not generally, is expected after BDSM. There are definitely plenty of books that have BDSM and don't touch on this, and it's very frustrating to me because aftercare is one of my favorite things. If for some reason you don't know what aftercare is the period of time that is negotiated between a dom and a sub after, engaging in BDSM activities where they have a come down, because something that can happen after you are very much in that headspace, both dom space and sub space. There is dom drop and sub drop. No books ever talk about dom drop. Some do, you know what I mean? But usually it's only ever the ones where it is like in a club and everyone's talking about it. And that's also frustrating to me because a lot of doms, after they have been doing certain things to their subs, they need to be reassured and comforted that they didn't hurt the person that they did this to. And that is so often skipped over, and it's only the sub who is getting the attention. And I mean, while I really love that too, I like to see it both ways. And we're going to talk about specifically one of these books. We're going to talk about that in it because it made me so happy to see it. But I love reading books with BDSM. I really, really do. My mood for how intense I want it definitely changes, and how, true to BDSM I want it. Sometimes I like to read the ones where they're not really following the rules, and other times when the rules aren't followed, I get extremely uncomfortable and mad about it. I go up and down. But the 9 books that I'm going to talk about today are ones that have varying degrees of aftercare that just really warmed my heart. Okay, so I hope I've explained that well. I do have quite a few other BDSM recommendation videos. That's why this one today specifically is going to be BDSM Rex Aftercare. We're specifically focusing on that. So I will point you towards my dark romance playlist or my romance playlist that has other BDSM Rex in it. But let's go ahead and go through these. And I'm actually going to start with the book that kind of inspired me to go ahead and do this. This one was actually a recommendation in my book rec form, my video rec form, which if you don't know, in the description of every video, I have a Google form where you can request a video, and I go through that. I delete ones that I've already done, 50 of those, or ones where I'm never going to read those books. But there's a lot of times where I'm trying to decide which videos to make, and I go to that video rec form and I see which ones are themes that I'm reading a lot lately and which are ones that I'd like to read more of. So if you recommend a video and it takes a while because there's 60 in there, part of it is that I have to read enough books to do one. Even to do one of my oddly specific rec videos, I need to read, at least 5 to 10 of those books to do it. So this is one that it was easier to put together. But anyway, a book that kind of pushed me over the top into doing this one is actually Losers Part 1 by Harley LaRue. This just came out on the 30th of September. And this book actually follows up I actually have it right here. This book actually comes after The Dare, which was this just little short book that Harley LaRue did, and she really liked the character she put into this novella. And so this is a reverse harem, or a why choose, whichever you want to call it, and it's a very interesting setup. I don't want to go fully into this because I've described this book 16 times in recent videos, but in The Dare, there is this party that happens. There's this one night between Jessica, who is this prom queen, cheerleader, dating a football guy, and she goes to this party and she ends up joining in on this dare where she does whatever Manson asks her to do for the night, and it involves some of his friends. There's some sharing of her, there's some degrading and some things that she's never experienced before, but it really awakens something in her. So we read that book. Then we come back to losers, and it's been almost 3 years since the end of high school. Things haven't been going great in Jessica's life, and so she's back in town. And Manson, along with Lucas, Jason, and Vincent, they live in town. They own a garage. They like restore and fix cars, and they're still kind of like ostracized and seen as other in the town. They are currently in 2 relationships. Okay, so there's 2 different couples in these 4 guys. They're bisexual. They've been together in these couples for a while now. Now Jessica's back in town. She's immediately like drawn to these guys again, even though she knows it won't be accepted by her parents or by anyone else in town. And even in her own mind, she doesn't fully realize that she's been drawn back to them because of what they awakened in her, and she hasn't been able to find with anyone else. Like even when she's tried finding the same level she's had before. And so some shit goes down, some bad things happen to the guys, and Jessica is left holding the bag for it, and so she owes them. And they agree that she can pay off her debt by being at their beck and call for sex. Now, this is still consensual. She has a safe word. She can say no to stuff. But every act and every like scenario she plays out with them, some of her debt gets reduced. So this is a sex deal, but it's also mostly an excuse for them all to interact in the ways they want to. So this has a lot of content warnings for BDSM activities, and then content warning for outside of that is like there's an abusive parent involved, as well as like homophobia and biphobia and some of that. But otherwise, most of the content warnings just have to do for BDSM content, which you can find, the author will have right inside of it. But the aftercare in this is beautiful, including, you know, they do some very intense things with her, either in like one-on-one scenes or group scenes. And there even at one time is a cuddle puddle where all 5 of them have aftercare together. And it was so beautiful. So even though things get pretty rough and pretty intense, to me, it just makes the aftercare even sweeter because you can say the dirtiest fucking stuff to the person you're doing this to, and then afterwards that like release of it, it's so beautiful. I love it. I love it. Okay, then I have my favorite fanfic to share with you. Well, okay, almost my favorite. We know what my favorite is. We have Contradictions by Ampersands. This is my beautiful copy that my friend Mel made for me. It's absolutely gorgeous. Look, here's the felt cover on it. And this is a fanfic. You can find it at AO3. I will link that down below. No, you can't buy a physical copy. This was a gift. This was literally hand bound for me. People always ask, where can I buy a copy? You can't. You can't unless you get a commission from someone to do it. But I have one because I'm blessed. You can, however, read it for free at AO3. It downloads onto your phone. Go watch one of my fanfic videos, which I'll link up here to find out how to do that, okay? Okay, anyway, this is a fanfic. So this is Hermione and Draco, and Hermione has had a failed relationship with, I think she was with Ron, but she turns to research to learn about why she thinks she hasn't been able to come with her partners and why she's not finding pleasure. And in a lot of the research she's done, she thinks that she might be able to lose control and get out of her head if she had a dom. And so there's this magical club that you can sign up for where they will see what your wants are and what you like, and they'll pair you with a dom, and you can meet, and it can be like secret, you know? So she goes and she has disguised herself. And I think he's wearing I can't remember what he does, whether he's wearing a mask or like what he's wearing, but they end up meeting at this club and they're discussing if she wants to, what they want to try. And so our wonderful Draco actually gets her off, and in the moment of getting her off, look, here's a nice, well, this is after they know who each other is. Love it. Her like facade drops, and they see who each other is, and she flees from him. And Draco is kind of put out by that, not just because she ran away, but because she left before aftercare. This was her first BDSM encounter, and she fled before completing aftercare. So now that he knows who she is, the next day he actually comes and finds her at work, and he's like, I'm not here to, discuss this. I understand that you wouldn't want me to be your dom. I think you will enjoy BDSM. I think I can see this being a good thing for you. I'm just here to give you aftercare. So literally he like sits and talks with her, and they talk through what she liked and didn't like, which is also part of aftercare. It's not just the petting and the cuddling. It's talking about what you liked and didn't like and all those things. And him like speaking with her, she's actually like, I would like to see you again. And he's like, are you sure? Because I don't know if you're going to be able to trust me and let go, and like I need you to trust me, and with our history maybe you can't. But spoiler alert, it does work. And so there are actually quite a few beautiful scenes of aftercare in this, because Draco is a good dom. He's a great master. And this book I also recommend, even like outside of the fan fiction realm. This is actually a great beginner to BDSM book, because it explains things without it having to be like a point by point perfect explanation of everything. This is a good one. Then we have another one that's great. I'll always recommend this. This is For Real by Alex Hall. This is going to be getting a new cover in the next couple years, and I'm very excited about it. But this is a gay romance, and it actually has a newbie dom who's only like 18, 19 years old, and he's had a lot of trouble becoming a dom because he only had like one boyfriend that he's experimented with, and so he's never really been able to try out what he's good at, what he's not. And he goes to this club the one night, and everyone's like, literally our hero Lori, who is almost 40, and he's actually a sub, and he's honestly been mourning the loss of his relationship from his dom for years. Like, it's literally been years, 6 years since his last relationship, and he's still mourning that relationship, and he's getting very tired of the BDSM community because he's missing the connections that he used to have, and he's missing that thrill that he would get. Like, it's all very rote for him now. And then he sees this fetus, as he calls him, at this club, and he thinks that he's a sub, and he's like, what are you doing here, subby? Like, you're gonna get hurt. And he's like, I'm not a sub, I'm a dom, but no one will give me a chance. Like, what do you do when you're a dom and you're trying to be a dom for the first time? And so Lori invites him back to his place for a one-night stand, and then they begin on this journey. And there are many different scenes of aftercare for actually the both of them. I think this book does a good job of showing the both sides of it, especially because Toby is new to it. There are scenes where Lori is needing to reassure him that I love what you do to me. And you do a good job, I adore this book so much. I adore this so much. It's fantastic. Then, of course, we gotta have some Katie Robert, okay? Like, Katie Robert has written so much BDSM, and she does great aftercare. This is one of my favorites, and one of the reasons why is that a lot of the couples in this series are enemies, and I love how in the Wicked Villain series, they still show this beautiful aftercare, even when it's people who hate each other. So this one is actually a marriage of convenience between Tink and Hook. They are in like a tight spot. They need to get married to like keep her safe from Peter Pan, because Tink has worked at Hades' sex club for many years. Like, she owed him a debt, and it's time for her to leave, and she basically just gets like kicked out. She can't live there anymore. And Peter Pan will come for her. Like, he will come for her because he's mad that she escaped him. And Hook wants to oust Peter Pan and like get rid of him. And so he offers Tink solace by becoming his wife. And they are both into BDSM, but she thinks she hates him. And there's some really beautiful scenes in this of, like, there's a scene in this one where we have an aborted scene where she like calls her safe word and he gets her out of the scenario, and then they talk about like what was too much and what was happening. And I feel like we don't have a ton of aborted scenes, because here's the thing that happens a lot, and this is something that I hate in BDSM. And it's usually happening when it's really dark, where the dom will be like, say your safe word and this stops. Everything stops. If you say the safe word, we're done forever. And they'll make this like ultimatum. And I just get so like, I know that the author's writing that to be dramatic, but it's literally the most manipulative thing ever. You've not made a safe space for the sub, because they should be able to say no, and you not just, sorry, literally the mail came like 2 hours early in the middle of it. Anyway, I just always think that's so manipulative, and when authors use it that way, I get so, because it happens a lot. Like, I'm not blaming any one author for that. And again, I know it's supposed to be this like high edge, but that's not supposed to happen. If you need a safe word, which granted, like, you can do for any reason, and so can the dom. Like, the dom can safe word because they think like they're getting uncomfortable, or they think you're pushing yourself further than you should. Like, anyone can call it for any reason, and it doesn't mean that you guys can't ever do a scene together again. No, it means you stop what's happening, you immediately go into aftercare, and you talk about it, you communicate. Like, what's supposed to be so beautiful about BDSM is the way that you communicate your needs and wants. And so what can look like, or what is like binding, and there's lots of rules, and maybe you have a dom who's super strict and all those things, it's supposed to be something you can feel freedom within. So anyway, that was my side rant. It's why I love BDSM when it's used in a healing aspect and something like that. So there's a scenario in here where Hook and Tink are having a scene, and again, I can't remember if she calls it or he called, like, I can't remember, but they immediately end it. They have aftercare, and she's getting very emotional about something, and they talk about what she's going through, and that, like, they have this beautiful scene, and it's great. But again, Katie Robert, she does wonderful with setting things up. She also does a great way of there being BDSM in the book without it completely stopping everything that's happening to explain what's going on. It's that very simple, like, hey, remember your safe word, or like, you know, let's go. And this book does that really well, and I love the aftercare in there. Then this one has a lot of the same. So this is Robbie by Ella Frank. This is the first book in the Confession series, which the series has 6 books in it, but the first 4 books are actually about this throuple. Okay, so we have actually Priest and Julian, who are a married gay couple. They've been together for 10 years. They have a really interesting past that we start to know. Robbie, he is a young pretty boy. He is a bartender. He actually works at Tate's Bar, who, if you read the Try series by Ella Frank, that actually comes before this series, and Robbie is a character we see. And Robbie is being courted by Julian and Priest. They're looking for a third person to add to their relationship because Priest is a dom. He is a dom. He is. Julian is a switch. He likes being dominated by his husband, but he also likes to dominate sometime. And they're just looking for someone who can meet like both of their needs, and also be someone that Priest can discipline and Julian can spoil. Like, there's just a whole thing. And Robbie is who they want to court to have that happen. So that's happening in the beginning of this. And Robbie, he really thinks Julian is hot and he really likes him, but he's been rubbed the wrong way by Priest. And so he can't have one without the other, though. And this is him kind of tipping his toe in to see if he can do both. And there's definitely some beautiful aftercare for sex in this whole series. Like, it's fantastic. I recently reread this one. I really want to keep the reread going. But these books are beautiful and emotional, and there is more going on than just their relationship. Like, do I think these could have been like 2 books? Yes, I do. But there's also a really great thing that's going on, because the first book is called Robbie, the second book is called Julian, the third is called Priest, and then the last one is called the Princess, the Prick, and the Priest, or whatever. It has like 3 in the name. And so each book does focus in on like who the name of the book is, and we learn more about their past and everything. And I like how Ella Frank does that. So, but again, there's good aftercare in here. Then we have Carnal Urges by J.T. Geisinger. I of course, absolutely adore this book. I have this book like annotated up the wazoo. Can you even see it? Where's all my... Oh yeah, I've used a lighter color on this one. This is a book that is well loved, well read. And while this scene doesn't have official BDSM, like it kind of does. This is an age gap. This is a captor-captive. This is Sloane, who is this firecracker in her, I think she's in her late 20s. Declan's in his 40s. He becomes the boss of a branch of the mafia at the beginning of this book after he's already kidnapped Sloane. And now he doesn't know what to do with her. And when we get to the part of the story where they are ready to make a go of it together, Declan is a very in charge man, and this involves some scenes where like Sloane didn't know she would like being spanked, or she would like having her pussy slapped, or that she would enjoy being handcuffed. Like, she's always been the one in control in her relationships. And Declan, like, there's some fucking gorgeous scenes in this book where like he ties her up and he's like, baby girl, you are in control of this. Like, you are in control, but you just need to let me be in charge right now. Like, it's so, he just understands it so well. And there is some beautiful aftercare in these where he's finally like, he's cracking into her shell, and just watching her like melt for him is so precious to me. Like, it's so beautiful, and he is fully aware of how lucky he is to have this woman. Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, he fully knows how lucky he is to have her, and he worships her. He worships her. And again, like, some of the aftercare scenes in this where he's washing her body and feeding her and brushing her hair, like, ugh, just kills me. It's so beautiful. I love Daddy D. Okay, now I have the book I mentioned where I think that this has really great like aftercare for the dominant in the situation. And even though this book isn't like officially a BDSM, there are definitely some bondage and like sadomasochistic scenes in here, and I cried after some of the scenes in this, and we'll talk about it more in just a sec. But that is Always Practice Safe Hex by Julia Cross. This is one of my favorite books this year. I love it. I might start crying right now. I love it so much. Here's the beautiful artwork that I have inside. This is book 4 in the Stay a Spell series. You do need to read this series in order. I'm saying it. I know people don't love that, but they're all on KU. There's audiobooks for all 4. Go get it. Go get it. But anyway, this is between Livy and Gareth. She's a witch. He's a Grim Reaper. They're actually working on a work project together. They are enemies. Like, Livy sees them as enemies. Gareth knows they're going to be together, and it's going to be great. And his Grim, I don't want to spoil anything, but I kind of need to share in this. Like, when you look at this picture, you see those black eyes, you see these shadow hands, like, there's a monster in him, okay? I don't want to explain how or whatever, but it's important for the context of this, because there is a sex scene in here specifically where Livy wants the monster to come out and play. Like, the monster is craving his mate, and Gareth kind of recedes a little bit, and this monster comes forth, and there is this very hot, very erotic scene between Livy and the monster and Gareth, and the monster is claiming his mate, and he gets pretty rough with her. There is some spicy stuff, and Livy loves it because she knows that this monster loves her. And when it's over and they're together, Gareth is, you know, he has her in bed and he is petting her, and he knows that when she wakes up, she's going to break up with him because his monster is horrible for what it did to her. That's what he thinks. And when she wakes up, Livy makes it known in no uncertain terms that not only does she love him, but she loves his monster, and that him and his monster did not do anything to her that she did not want, because he might not realize it, but she knows that his monster would never do anything to hurt her. And all those bruises that she might have are because she wanted them, not because it was too much for her. And so to me, this really showed some beautiful scenes of the submissive and the in the couple comforting the dominant presence and being like, hey, like, you didn't hurt me. You didn't do anything I didn't want to happen. And I know that if I had asked you to stop at any point, it would have stopped. You did nothing wrong. And again, I think that's very important for us to see both sides of that. Then we, of course, you know, this had to come into play. We have Praise by Sarah Kate. And boy, has this series taken TikTok, taken Instagram, taken BookTube by storm, okay? I was so lucky to read an arc of this book. I had no idea what was coming of it. I do have a beautiful copy I got signed when I went to Wanderlust. If you want these beautiful, sexy covers with the men on them, you better get them soon. They are going to be disappearing soon. But anyway, this is about Emerson and Charlie. And Charlie dated Emerson's son, Beau, and he cheated on her. They've broken up, and they used to live together, and now they're needing to not. And his father was given the deposit back, and like, she needs her half of the deposit. And so Beau is like, well, you have to go get it from my dad. So she goes to get it. Misunderstanding happens. Emerson thinks she's his new sub who's there for the day, and so he demands her to get on her knees, and she's so stunned by this beautiful man telling her to get on her knees that she does. And then, hilariously and awkwardly, he's like, holy shit, Charlie, get off your knees. And he's so embarrassed that he did this, and he's horrified, and Charlie leaves, surprisingly aroused. So when he comes to visit to make it up to her, he actually offers her a job to make up for it. And so she becomes his secretary. But very soon, she wants to learn more about the tingly feelings she was getting when he was telling her what to do. And while he wants to pretend that, no, there won't be any sex. I can be your Dom, but there won't be any sex happening. Well, we all know that's going to last about 5 seconds, right? Like, we know that's going to last about 5 seconds. But there's some beautiful aftercare in this. This book and the fourth book, which, funny enough, Praise is book 1, Mercy is book 4, which is actually about Beau and his love interest. They have the strongest, like, BDSM structure, in my opinion. The other two are more like sex clubby things happening, not quite as much like BDSM elements happening. They do explore different kinks, but not all kinks are BDSM, right? But they definitely are trying to follow like structure more, just to make sure that Charlie learns her boundaries and yes and no to everything. But I think there's some beautiful aftercare in here as well. And then I saved the best for last. This was the book that really cracked BDSM wide open for me. I put it in a lot of my BDSM recs and all my favorite book lists and all the things. It has a very special place in my heart for so many reasons. And one of the most important is just how well that, even though this is a taboo, forbidden relationship, how beautiful the story is and how moving it is. And if you are someone who loves BDSM, I highly recommend you read this book because it is magical to me. Like, honestly, it's so beautiful to me. And that's Dark Notes by Pam Godwin. Yes, this is my beautiful Mystic Box cover. This was my first ever Pam Godwin that I read. I read it quite a few years ago now. But this is about our heroine, Ivory, who is called a slut, who is poor, who is a scholarship student to this prestigious musical high school. And her new teacher, Emmerich, is kind of a shamed teacher. He'd gotten himself into a bit of trouble, and now he's a teacher at this school. And Ivy, he has his eye on her pretty soon. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable how much he has his eyes on her when she's still 17, when she's still his student. It's taboo. It's not supposed to feel great. But what is great about this book is because Emerson is watching her, because he is, you know, inappropriately having feelings for her, he notices her in a way that nobody else is noticing her. He's seeing the pain that she's living with in a way that everyone else is ignoring. And he notices that she is basically being like, well, not basically, she is selling herself for money to provide for her family, and her family doesn't even realize it. And when he realizes what's happening, he steps in and in an inappropriate manner. Again, it's taboo. I'm not saying that it's miraculous in that way, but he notices these things about her that he really thinks BDSM could help with. And granted, he's interested in BDSM, so it is a bit of a self-serving scenario, but he starts to teach her the principles of it and the way that it could help her be in more control of her life, for her to be more in control in sexual scenarios, even when, you know, she may be the subservient one, even when he's punishing her for something she's done bad, that she controls everything. Where the word no was not powerful enough, he will give her a safe word that holds more weight than the word no does. And that he'll give her everything she needs and support her and make her dreams come true. And it's beautiful. And of course, there's beautiful aftercare in here. Like, of course there is. But the things that Emmerich shows her and the freedom that he's able to give her is perfection. There's a reason why Pam Godwin is God tier for books for me. So there you go. Those are 9 books that I recommend for great aftercare. Of course, I've read many, 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 but these are the ones that are some of my favorites, and also not like overly strict, every second is in a sex club, all of that, because there's a place for those are fun, but sometimes that's not what we want. So thank you so much for watching this. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. If you'd like more dark recommendations or other recommendations, I have a list of so many in my playlist. I have a dark romance rec playlist and just a regular recommendation playlist, and so you can check those out. And if there's a trope, I've probably done it. You can check it out there. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye.